Welcome to From Struggle to Success, creating a Dynamics 365 recovery plan. You are probably here because maybe you had a CRM project that started well, but maybe the journey isn't going quite so well anymore. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm just going to play the first half of this 1 minute video to hopefully start with a little bit of fun and maybe something that helps you get your head around what might sound familiar to you in your CRM journey. Maybe some of that felt and sounded a little familiar to you. Sometimes there are problems in your journey because of user frustrations, little bugs, those kinds of things. Sometimes it's other things. Sometimes it's the planning. So if you're planning a big journey into an unknown country, one of the first things you might do, and one of the first things most people do in their CRM journey is say, I'm going to go try to find the best, most seaworthy boat that I can. And that's your CRM software. So you start your journey by saying, let me get the right software, and you get a demo, and it's beautiful and exciting and engaging. You see dashboards that managers love and Outlook integration that users love, and the ability to track activities against a pipeline or against customer service cases or to deploy marketing projects or whatever it is, but it all looks wonderful. And so you buy the software and you set sail for the promised land. And somewhere in that journey, someone starts to look around and say, where are we? And where are we going? Right? Why did we do this in the first place? Maybe there wasn't enough planning. Maybe there wasn't enough vision to begin with. Another variant of that story is someone who actually does do a lot of planning up front. They're very detailed. They have a project plan with all the steps they need to take them to where they want to go. And they set off on a rigid beeline course for where they think CRM should take them and their organization. And one day they realize they've arrived and they mapped out the wrong destination. And now it's going to be a lot of rethinking and rework and frustration to really get to where they wanted to go in the first place. So that's a couple of things. Maybe it's a planning issue. Sometimes it's a leadership issue. I can tell you the most effective CRM implementations I've had the privilege to be around are not only viewed as a management and leadership tool, but management and leadership actually develops skills in using it. So here's the reality. Looking at this slide, you need leaders that are digitally strong. And relatively few organizations have that today. According to Harvard Business Review, only about 19% of leaders and managers are strong digitally. That means they're using digital tools natively. They're using them to do their jobs better. They're not just giving them to other people and expecting them to use them to hopefully improve the business. That might be intimidating, but the results speak for themselves on the slide. And I can tell you from my personal experience, the results speak for themselves in real life too. So could be leadership, might be part of the struggle. It could be expectations, right? Most people expect to hop into their CRM system and it's going to take them from their old worn path, comfortable journey of doing business into a sales, marketing, or customer service superhighway, right? Sort of like a GPS, like I'm going to get in this thing and it's going to take me where I need to go. And so their expectation is flip the switch and we're going to convert from this country road to superhighway. And no one tells them up front that, if you want to build a superhighway, there's going to be a lot of traffic along the way. So we better prepare our leaders and our users and our whole team to slow down a little bit before they speed up. Sometimes the expectation is this, well, instead of building a superhighway, we just took our old processes and procedures, or maybe our old CRM system, and we just kind of paved that country road. And it's not a super highway, it's kind of a bumpy, potholed road that's not a whole lot more efficient than it was before. In some cases, maybe it's less efficient than it was before. And then they go into pothole paving mode. And what I can tell you about pothole paving mode is you never build a superhighway by paving potholes. So you could be stuck there. Last expectation that might be painfully true for some of you that I run into a lot is you actually did build the superhighway. It's there, and darned if you can't get anybody to drive on it, right? I'm an avid motorcycle rider, but I kind of came back to it later in life. And when I took my motorcycle out on the freeway the first few times, it was intimidating. It was incredibly frightening for me to be a few feet away from an 18-wheeler out exposed in the open. That's how some of your users might feel. Look, I've been on this comfortable, familiar path for 10, 20, 30 years of my career. Now you want to throw me on the superhighway, and I don't want to go. I'm going to keep working the way I've always worked before. So you might have the abandoned superhighway. So those are some of the expectations. So today we're going to talk about all those things in this building a roadmap back to success session. That's a lot to cover. And as you can see, there are a lot of things attached to that too. So in the next 23 minutes or so here, we're going to unwrap all that a little bit, but we're really going to hit the tip of the iceberg on a lot of it. It's going to be fast paced. I'll give you a lot of links for follow-up resources if you want to dig deeper. Let's dive in. Quick intro to me, for those of you who have not met before. My name is Jeff Abels. I started a firm that does this about 20 years ago. It's called C5 Insight, and we coach people on putting their CRM plans together. We help design sales processes and marketing personas and customer care processes. And we also have a full implementation group that gets very roll up the sleeves, technical, actually set up and configure Dynamics 365 to do these things for our clients. And I've written a couple of books in that journey. Maybe someday I'll be able to write some more. And over on the right side is kind of the stuff, the important stuff about me, right? So my wife and I are empty nesters now. We still love to hang with our kids, but they're both pretty distant, so we don't get to see them as much as we used to. But we love our sons-in-law. We love little grandbaby there, Theo. That picture's a little outdated. We love enjoying fine spirits together, riding a motorcycle together, and we hang out with our buddy, the dog there, Verdi. So that's a little bit of us and the things that we enjoy. So as we think about putting a recovery roadmap together, what does that look like? Well, really just 4 steps to keep it simple. The first one is collaborating with your team. So getting together and starting to say, what are your frustrations? What is it you want to do? Where are we trying to steer this ship? What's our vision and our goal? Then taking that information and analyzing it, doing the business analysis, deeply understanding what it is that needs to happen. Then you start putting your plan together. You start your documentation. You connect the dots and you say, what does the plan look like? And lastly, you validate and you go into continuous production mode, continuous improvement mode. So 4 things to think about. Again, I like to keep things simple, and I like this framework. We use it a lot at our company. You listen to your people, you truly understand what they're saying, you connect deeply and connect into creating a plan, and then you know what your results are so you can continuously improve. Listen, understand, connect, and know. We call that being powered by luck. It's how all human relationships work, and it's really what your CRM system is designed to do, right? It's supposed to help you do this better with your customers and with each other than you've been able to do before. So this is our plan. This is our roadmap for the rest of this roadmap session. First of all, we're going to talk about how do we listen to our team? How do we engage with them and start drawing information out of them, and even listen to our CRM system itself? So it all starts with one word, and that word is why. Why are you doing this project? Getting that question answered is your guiding light. And so many CRM projects that need resuscitating that I've run into don't really have a clear sense of why, right? They're that boat in the middle of the ocean saying, why did we start this journey again? Where are we going? What is this supposed to do for us? A lot of organizations would say that feeling feels very familiar to me. And once you understand your why, the first thing you do with it is you reflect it in the name of your project. So you can see this is the name that most CRM projects have. It sounds like technology. It sounds like forced adoption. It sounds like a thing I have done to me, not something I have done for me or with me. Here's one other option. I'm not prescribing it for you, but giving it to you as an example. But all of a sudden now with this option, we have a vision that's a little more detailed, right? This is where we're steering our ship. It may be broad, it may be big picture. You might define a lot of detail underneath it, but you're starting just with your why and your project name, right? And it should align with your company mission. So in this case, this is a company that wants to be very customer engaged. It talks about an outcome, not an aimless activity. I can't overemphasize how important this is, and I can't tell you how often I give this live to public audiences, and I kind of get the glazed over, yes, I get that that's important. Can you please get on with it? And I can tell you, if you don't go back and evaluate this and get this right, or at least directionally good, you're going to continue to be frustrated. So spending some time here, good idea. There's a little resource for you can download that might help you with brainstorming. Now, once you start to have that sense of direction, and by the way, it may refine over time. You may not get it right in year one or the first time you do this, but you're in a continuous learning process. You'll refine it as you go on. Then you want to start engaging your team. So here are two slides, this one and the next one, that we frequently use when we start many planning workshops. This first question, suppose we're sitting here again in 2 years and we're saying CRM is really great. Why do I think it's great? How do I answer that question? And you start collecting answers and you put them on sticky notes and you put them on the wall, or you use a digital sticky note application if you're remote, and you collect all the answers and you just begin brainstorming, what is it about this that we want to do better? Now, you might do some other stuff in between. We usually do too. But if you want to be really rapid, the next thing you might do, or at least the last thing you'll do after you've kind of done a lot of workshop exercises, is say, okay, let's take all these ideas we have and let's prioritize them. Let's have columns for 3, 6, 9, 12, 18, and 24 months. Those might be different for you. But now let's take all these stickies we've brainstormed and let's put them under the month that we have in mind. An insider tip, 80% of these will be in the 3 or 6 month range. They always are, and you're never going to get them done that quickly. So the next thing you do is you have people vote on all the items in those first two categories with little voting dots on them. So now you can say, okay, we know you want 80% of the things done in the first 3 to 6 months, but here are the first parts of those 80% of things that we're going to focus on. Now, we call these types of workshops and we do them LUCKstorming sessions, and they use a specific cadence to do this. There's that word again, luck, and the idea is the same here. When you run most workshops, they're boring, they're challenging. As soon as one person shares an idea, you're kind of off on a rabbit trail chasing that, and you're not getting the best thinking of everyone out on the table. They tend to be dominated either by leaders or extroverts, and sometimes people who have great subject matter knowledge aren't comfortable sharing in those settings. So that's why I talk about the sticky notes and voting and things like that, that generates some kind of communication that just talking in an unstructured or less structured manner isn't going to generate. So there's a lot of benefits associated with that. Make sure you're intentional about how you do that. If you just say, let's have a meeting to talk about CRM, you'll get some input, but I'll tell you, if you spend the same amount of time in this meeting, but a lot more time preparing for this meeting, you're going to get way better output that you can use on the back end. And the process for these kinds of meetings is this. We always like to start with leadership first. So get their insight into what do we think as a leadership team the priorities are, what's important to us. Use that to help you fine tune what you're going to go ask each of your other business units, your stakeholders, whoever they happen to be. And you might have one meeting with all of them. You might have 30 different meetings, depending on how big and complex your organization is. But go meet with your stakeholder groups, try to kind of have them isolated in process buckets or departmental buckets so you're not too loosey-goosey with them. Then bring all of that back at the end, share all the priorities with the leadership meeting, with the leadership team, and let them reprioritize all of them based on their own wisdom, their own goals for the organization. When you do that, it's going to look something like this when you come back to the leadership team. In fact, it looked exactly like this in one case with one of our clients recently. So all of your stickies go up there and they're in a nice hierarchical ordered arrangement. You move them over under the right prioritizations. You do the voting dots and all that stuff. If you are living in a digital world and you say, I can't do these stickies like this, I can't get everybody physically together right now, there's a great application we like to use. It's called Mural. There's a link on the bottom of it there that does this digitally. In fact, we've become such big believers in it during this COVID season. We believe we may continue to use it even in live meetings. It's really, really powerful and can bring a team together. Even if they're all sitting there physically with their laptops, there can be better outcomes than if you're trying to do these physical stickies. So cool app there, just something you might want to check out. Now, I've really talked about workshops, but there are lots of different ways you can listen to your team. We call this listening to your Cubs, and that means your customers, your users, the business, and the systems and technology people. So the people that you're there to serve, the people who are using the applications, the business itself and the leaders and managers, and then the IT group, the systems group, because they're going to have to support this and integrate it with other things that they're doing as well. So as you think about that, this is a long list of different ways you can listen, depending on time and budget and the value you're going to get out of making these investments. You should cherry pick different ones for different purposes. Two of them that we feel very strongly of that we do in most cases are ride-alongs. Some people call those work withs. That's where we literally go ride along with some of the people who might be users of this system. What do you like? What do you dislike? And don't just show me the system, show me your whole day, because you might not even know that this can bring some efficiencies to you or some intel to you that you just don't know to be asking for. The other one is benchmarking surveys. So benchmarking surveys are a great way uh, to do electronic surveys en masse and get mass feedback back from your user group and use that to help set priorities. We like doing some of those things before you do the workshops so you can lead better, more relevant workshops. But there's a lot of things on this list. Consider them all depending on who you are. At the end of this stage, what you're going to do is you're going to have what we call raw material deliverables. It's not the end product. It's not the plan. It's not ready to go. A lot of it's going to be really boring, but if you do LUCKstorming right, it almost becomes self-documenting. So you have a lot of raw information you've captured. You might have even run reports against your CRM system. Since this is a recovery session, we do a lot of health check reporting. You might pull all those out to check data integrity and those kinds of things. So you're putting all that together in some raw material documents that you or whoever you're working with, whatever team is doing this plan, are going to then take to the next step. And remember, that next step is understanding that information. You're going to break it apart, you're going to analyze it so that you can begin to understand what a plan might look like. What does that process look like? At the highest level, it really just means this. You want to understand the current state of your CRM application and processes and people as well as you can. And then you want to envision what a future state can look like. And you can kind of see the pictures there, right? Ideally, you kind of get a sense of this is broken, this is rickety, this is dangerous, this isn't scalable, this can't hold the full weight of our organization on it. And here's the vision. This is much more efficient, much safer. It's going to be able to continue to grow with us over a long period of time and be a safe way for us to scale our business without having to hire a new person every time we need to grow a little bit. As you think about those two things, there are three things you want to do to take you through this step. The first is assess the situation. Think of yourself as the doctor, right? I'm not here to write that prescription yet. I'm here to just check your heartbeat, bump the little hammer on your knee to see what your reflexes are. Check, does that hurt? Does it hurt more here? Does it hurt more there? That's what an assessment of the situation looks like. And in fact, you want to document it that way because ultimately, when you go back and build your business case, you don't just want to say, we can do this better, or here's these cool outcomes. You also want to define, where does it hurt? How much does it hurt? Why does it hurt? So when you go to executives, they'll start to get a sense of, we have pain. I may not be as aware of it as I thought I was, but we have pain that we need to solve, and you need to document that for them. In fact, some executives are very driven, not so much by opportunity to improve, but more, what is a problem I'm trying to solve? So it's really important to understand and define that. Then you identify the opportunities. What is the other side of that coin? Not just how are we going to fix what hurts, but how are we going to explore new areas of capability that we weren't even aware of, new things as a business we might revolutionize because we have this revolutionary tool. And then you build your business case with that information. So as you think about those things, the first thing on that list is integration is never optional. If you're here in this session and you're frustrated, one of the things that might be missing is integration. If your CRM system is just another stovepipe system, another standalone system, you're probably going to wind up with frustrated users. But you probably can't integrate everything with it right away. So part of your roadmap needs to be understanding, what are all these systems among our CRM users? What other systems do they have to use? And how do we gradually make their lives easier by integrating more of that data so they can go one place to do what they need to do to get their job done? You also need to understand the answer to this question. And I'm always surprised at how many people struggle with this. So people will ask for things, that's great, but you don't always want to give them what they ask for. And you can tell already this is a bit of a tightrope to walk, but we get called in on rescue projects all the time. And we hear frustrated leaders and managers and users saying, this doesn't work the way I expected it to work. People haven't done this the way we expected them to do it. And then we go back and we do some audits and we say, it's actually doing exactly what you asked for, exactly what the requirements were that you defined. But unfortunately, those aren't the requirements you should have defined. And the reality is, a lot of the people who implement CRM, whether it's internal or external folks, incredibly talented technical people. But what often happens is they hear what someone wants to do and they say, by golly, I can do that. I've got incredible skills and I can make it do exactly what you want it to do. But they may not be so good all the time at pushing back and saying, why do you really want to do that? There might be some other way to do this, or there might actually be something different you want. But if I just take the orders without understanding the why behind it, I might give you something you weren't really expecting. Or, hey, I understand what you're asking, but I can tell you because of the way this application works, you're going to wind up probably being frustrated if we do exactly that. How about we look at this other option together and see if that can work for you? You need people on the team who can ask those questions and who can be strong-willed enough to push back in a polite way to get people on board with doing things in a meaningful way. And remember, they might be wrong sometimes too. So it's a discussion, it's a dialogue. Someone makes recommendations, someone else makes decisions. As you consider all that, mind the gaps and the fits. You might have heard of something called a fit gap analysis. Really important thing to do. Ideally, this happens before you've actually bought your CRM solution. You're here today, so you might already have one. I'm not encouraging you to redefine that whole decision because most CRM solutions are pretty strong on their own. But if you haven't selected it yet, this is something to understand before you get in because it helps you with the selection process. So let's look at this diagram. Let's pretend that this blue marble is the ideal CRM solution for your organization. That's your set of requirements. That's everything you would like to do. That's your why. That's your vision for where you want to go. And this CRM solution you purchased, this is what its set of capabilities are. And you can see there is a fit to some extent. It overlaps with your ideal solution, and there's a gap to some extent. There are some things it can't do out of the box that you really would like for it to do to be the full solution for your organization. The next thing you do when you look at this is you say, well, what is the cost of filling that gap and how much of it can we cost effectively fill through configuration, through customization? I think of configuration as kind of no code stuff, things that the product was meant to do. Customization, I think, is more code, and there's all sorts of different degrees of that, and even third-party applications. So how much of that gap can we cost effectively fill to deliver the right thing? And then what you have left are two things, one of which people spend too much time on, one of which they spend too little time on. They spend too much time looking at that little fingernail saying, I can't do that. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. I need to go find some other solution, or users are going to complain and we're not going to get them to actually use it until we can actually fix this really expensive problem. On the other hand, you've got this entirely other area, the opportunity, things no one was even asking for that CRM can do for you that could be incredibly powerful, but you're not leveraging it because you didn't know to have it in your vision to begin with. This is where something like a visionary demo can even help to say, hey gang, look, we haven't even dreamed about this, but look at these other things that this can do for us. And don't they more than offset these small things that are going to be really expensive to fix? But that's the reality of what typically happens. There's some things you'd like to have that you really just practically can't or cost effectively can't, but you might wait for future upgrades and things like that to come along to help you fill in those other gaps. Then you build your business case. Now, part of a business case can be storytelling. Don't be afraid to share stories and pictures. Maybe numbers and analytics should be used to make more decisions, but humans, even executives, often respond better to pictures and stories than to numbers. So here's one. This is a manufacturer, and they describe to their leadership how their organization successfully grew, and this thing kind of like built over time. I'm just kind of giving you the summary. But with all that growth came this complexity. And it was very challenging for their people to learn all the systems that they needed to keep up with everything. And someone came along and said, hey, this should help. And they threw in CRM and they threw in SharePoint. And for the organization, it really was just more places to go, more lines, more apps to learn, more places to enter data, more things you have to look at to research to understand what's going on. It didn't take anything away. It was just adding to it. And so they helped the leaders to look at this to say, Why don't we have a vision to say we're going to reduce complexity for employees with fewer places to go to get their work done? Now, realistically, nobody expects to ever arrive there perfectly, but that's what a vision is. It's something you can continuously strive for. That may or may not be your vision, but don't be afraid to use stories and pictures to help describe this better as you share your business case with leadership. Then you're also going to want to, of course, build more of an analytical financial ROI. So there are some great generic numbers out there you can use that came out in a study a number of years ago. Here's a list of the numbers. Here's an actual form we put together for a client to actually share these numbers. Working with their CFO, we actually dug all the way down, not just to cost, revenue, and ROI, but even a 5-year net present value calculation for their project. There's a link at the bottom of this to the Nucleus study that has all that information in it if you want to go explore it more. Now, don't forget, there's also more of a soft side of the business case. So explore that as well. Soft benefits are important. They should be accompanied by hard benefits all the time. Remember, soft only is kind of that ship without any direction. It's important to maybe have these, but have your direction, have your focus as well. And here's another link to some more publicly available metrics in ebook format that you can use to build your business case out in a little more detail. Okay, last little bit here. Now that you've done all your analytics and you understand, you want to actually build the document. You want to build the roadmap, the project plan to recovery. So you're going to connect all that you've learned with all that you want to do. This is your table of contents. And remember, this may be a highly detailed Microsoft Word type document, or it could be more of an executive summary PowerPoint with just enough information to hand off to the project team. The slide has reasonably good descriptions of each section, so let's move on to what might be more helpful, and that is what to leave out of your plan. Remember, it's a roadmap. Don't sweat the small stuff. And I can tell you most CRM plans I've seen are almost all entirely about the small stuff. The things on this page are for your individual sprints. You're going to break this roadmap up into a number of sub-projects or sub-phases, and that is the time to build these other things out. So as you look at this, by the way, remember, don't adopt, adapt. Refine this to your own needs. I'm just giving you one example, but you're going to want to do something that's more custom fit to your organization. Look, here's a simple truth. If you take big steps, they lead to big mistakes. CRM success is a case of the tortoise and the hare. If you rush, you'll get somewhere fast, but there will probably be a lot of rework that means time, cost, and frustration that might have actually gone better, faster, and cheaper had you taken a little bit more slowly. This is the agile approach. Most people think, oh, agile means we're moving faster, but that's not what it means. It actually means taking more small steps with course corrections between each, having patience, and over time achieving big wins. So now we're to the final section of this. We've put our plan into place. Now we need to put the plan into action, and we need to continuously learn. So back to our steps here. Here's what an agile project plan looks like. You have your roadmap. It's broken into projects or phases. They're broken into sprints. You learn at each sprint in order to course correct and move forward. And don't forget, in parallel with this, you need to develop a support structure. That's the yellow bar up there that runs in parallel with the project. So the projects themselves should usually be done by different people than people who are doing all this other support work to help manage the change. One way to do that is to consider building an ecosystem of people so that all the support doesn't fall onto one person or a small group of people, but instead you can spread the load across power users and managers and leaders, and then finally escalate people to technical experts only when it needs to be. So remember, this is continuous improvement. CRM's never done. Just like your organization and departments have a planning cadence, build that into your CRM project as well. Better yet, integrate that planning process with your departmental and company planning. Thanks for attending this session. 2 parting slides. We started with leadership. We're going to end with leadership. Look, if leadership doesn't see your project as a leadership and management tool, then your project will struggle. And there are ways of getting most of them on board. Be persistent. My experience is this. Most leaders want to have tools that make them better leaders. Once they understand that, you will get them on board. Thanks again for joining us today. I've put a lot of resources out there in this session that you saw links to. Here are a few more. If you want all the links, just ping my email address. What we do is we put together rescue plans, health checks, roadmaps. That's a big part of our CRM practice, as well as a hands-on implementation. If that's something you're looking for support with, reach out, contact me. I'd love to have a conversation. Thanks again, and have a great day.